My folks flat out refused to help me pay for college, but behind the scenes, they were secretly bankrolling my sister's entire lifestyle. That is, until Grandpa found out, and let's just say, things took a turn they never saw coming. I'm Sarah, 21 years old, and yeah, I've got some serious family drama to unload. To give you the full picture, I just graduated college not too long ago, but man, the road getting there was anything but smooth. This whole mess kicked off when I turned 18, and my parents decided to pull a fast one on me. So here's how it all went down. It was right after I finished high school, that in-between summer where everything's supposed to feel full of hope and excitement. I was pumped about starting at the local community college that fall. I chose a campus nearby to save money, college isn't cheap, and commuting seemed like the smart move. I had a bit of savings from my part-time job at a little cafe, and I figured my parents would help me out at least a little, so I thought I'd be fine. One night, they called me into the kitchen for a chat. I figured it'd be one of those "we're so proud of you" moments. But nope, that wasn't what they had in mind. Instead, they sat me down and launched into the whole "you're an adult now" routine. You know the speech, time to stand on your own 2 feet, learn responsibility, blah blah blah. Then my mom dropped the real bomb: we've decided we're not going to pay for your college. You'll have to handle it yourself. And just like that, my stomach sank. I wasn't expecting them to cover every little thing, but I never imagined they'd leave me with nothing, not even help with books, gas money, or tuition. It felt like getting slapped in the face. But hold on, it gets worse. My dad, who's usually the quiet one in the room, added, "If you want to keep living here, you'll need to start paying rent. And groceries too. It's only fair." I just sat there stunned, thinking, seriously? I was still sleeping in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by posters from middle school, and now they wanted me to start paying like I was some tenant? And just so we're clear, my parents aren't hurting for money. Mom works as an accountant, and Dad's a project manager. They're doing just fine financially. They didn't need the rent, it wasn't about money. It was about teaching me a lesson in adulthood. Meanwhile, my little sister Lisa, she was 16 at the time, was living like royalty. She's always been the golden child, straight-A student, cheer captain, basically the star of the family. My parents practically put her on a pedestal. Now, I wish I could say I stood up for myself back then, told them off or something. But truthfully, I didn't. I didn't want to stir up more drama or come off as ungrateful. So I told myself, fine. I'll pay rent. I'll grind through college. I've always been pretty independent anyway. But deep down, I was furious. And it wasn't just the rent, I had to worry about tuition, books, gas, food, everything added up fast. I started working extra shifts at the cafe, sometimes staying late into the night just to scrape together enough. On the side, I picked up small baking jobs, making cupcakes and cookies for birthday parties and local events. It felt like I was constantly working, but somehow, it never seemed like enough. Still, I kept pushing forward, determined to be ready by the time school started. I lost count of how many times I thought about moving out. I even started checking out apartments near campus, but rent prices around here are ridiculous. Seriously, how do people afford to live on their own these days? Even with roommates, every place I looked at was way out of my price range. Eventually, I accepted that moving out wasn't in the cards, at least not yet. So I made a deal with myself, stick it out at home until I finish school. Keep my head down, save every penny I can, and when the time comes, walk away for good. That became my goal. Every late shift, every dollar I stashed away, every weekend I stayed in instead of going out, it was all part of my escape plan. But let me tell you, living at home during that time was no picnic. My parents didn't make it easy. They started asking for rent before my classes even began. They'd bring it up constantly, like clockwork, even if I was just a day away from paying. I was never late, but they sure loved reminding me. Meanwhile, they were spoiling Lisa like it was her birthday every week. One time, they took her out to buy a new cheer uniform and ended up coming back with bags of clothes, shoes, accessories, you name it. She waltzed in beaming, like she just walked out of a shopping spree on a reality show. I asked Mom if she could at least help me cover the cost of my textbooks for the semester. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Sarah, you need to budget better. Lisa doesn't have these kinds of expenses." That hit hard. It wasn't even just about the money, it was how little they seemed to care about what I was going through. Lisa didn't make it easier either. She's not a bad person or anything, but she's definitely spoiled. She'd go on and on about her new stuff or whine about how tough cheer practice was, while I was running on barely 3 hours of sleep, juggling 2 jobs. One night, I came home completely wiped from a double shift and saw her sprawled out on the couch with brand new AirPods. "Oh, Mom and Dad got these for me," she said, all casual, like it was no big deal. "You should totally get some too, they're amazing." I just looked at her and said, "Yeah, maybe when I'm not paying rent." She rolled her eyes and went right back to scrolling through TikTok. There were so many times I wanted to scream, just to let it all out, tell my parents how unfair this whole thing was. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't change a thing. Lisa was their golden girl. Me? I was just the kid paying rent. So I kept quiet and focused on my goal. College was supposed to be this exciting, fresh start in life. But for me? It felt more like survival mode right from day one. I thought I'd have some time to figure things out and maybe even enjoy myself a little, but that wasn't how it played out. But nope. That whole idea of balance or breathing room? Out the window. Between classes, shifts at the cafe, and my parents constantly on my case about rent, I was completely wiped out, day in and day out. Every morning started the same, alarm blaring at 6 a.m., out the door by 7, headed to community college for early lectures. I'd try squeezing in a little study time between classes, but as soon as noon hit, I was rushing off to work. Most nights, I'd be on my feet until 9 or 10 p.m., come home dead tired, and basically faceplant into bed. Weekends weren't any better. Forget relaxing or catching my breath, those were my baking days. I'd take on small catering gigs, usually cupcakes or cookies for birthdays or events, because let's be honest, my part-time job alone wasn't cutting it. I wish I could tell you I was handling it like a champ, but the truth is, I was barely hanging on. The cafe was pure chaos most of the time. We were always understaffed, people were cranky as hell, especially with the pandemic still messing with everyone's patience. Every shift felt like a full-on sprint. One minute I'd be whipping up lattes, the next I'd be running to cover the drive-thru, and then dealing with customer number 87 of the day who swore her coffee wasn't hot enough. And in the back of my mind, I knew I still had hours of homework waiting for me at home. And my parents? They weren't exactly cheering me on from the sidelines. They'd see me drag myself in late at night, obviously exhausted, but instead of any kind of support, I'd get a reminder. "Don't forget, rent's due Friday," or "Hey, the electric bill went up, are you leaving your light on too long?" Every time they said something like that, I wanted to scream. And while I was killing myself just trying to stay afloat, Lisa was living life like she didn't have a care in the world. No job, no bills, no stress. Her schedule was packed with cheer practice, hangouts with friends, and endless TikTok scrolls. I'd walk in from a brutal shift and there she'd be, lounging on the couch, snacks in hand, watching the latest Netflix obsession. Meanwhile, Mom would be in the kitchen blending her a smoothie to keep her energy up. It honestly felt like we were living in 2 completely different realities under the same roof. The money stress was unreal. Sure, the rent I paid wasn't as bad as what I'd fork over for an apartment, but paying to live in the house I grew up in. That stung in a way that was hard to explain. And it wasn't just rent, add in gas, books, tuition, food, and I was constantly tapped out. There were weeks I'd open up my banking app, see $42 in my account, and just sit there wondering how the hell I was supposed to stretch that until payday. Asking for help? Yeah, that was a joke. Once, I got hit with a $200 textbook I absolutely needed for class, so I asked Mom if she could help with groceries for just that week. She gave me this look, like I'd just asked her to co-sign a mortgage, and said, "Sarah, we're already doing a lot by letting you live here." Letting me live here, like I wasn't handing them rent money every month. Like I wasn't pulling more weight than Lisa, who still got a monthly allowance and wasn't expected to contribute a single cent. Things really hit bottom during midterms. I was buried in assignments, my sleep schedule was a disaster, and to make it worse, my hours at the cafe got cut because business had slowed down. I tried to fill the gap with more baking orders, but there's only so much time in a day. One weekend, I landed a big one. A birthday party wanted 100 cupcakes and a custom cake. It was good money, but it meant pulling an all-nighter to get it done. I baked nonstop, frosted until my hands cramped, got everything boxed up, and delivered it just in time to make it to class. When I got home later that day, I was running on fumes. I walked into the kitchen and found Mom and Lisa baking cookies, for fun. Lisa looked up, smiled, and said, "Oh hey, Sarah, you should bake with us. It's so relaxing." I swear, I almost chucked that tray of cookies out the window. Instead, I mumbled something about being tired and trudged to my room. I passed out and didn't wake up until the next morning. By the time finals rolled around, I was completely burnt out. My grades weren't awful, but they weren't anything to brag about either. I was barely staying above water, and every time I thought about how hard I was working just to survive, I felt this slow, burning anger building up inside me. It just wasn't fair. I was doing everything they said I should, standing on my own 2 feet, not asking for handouts, and they couldn't even recognize the effort. Meanwhile, Lisa had the red carpet rolled out for her every step of the way. I honestly don't know how I got through that first year. It felt like I was climbing a mountain with a backpack full of bricks, but I just kept telling myself, "Hang on. This won't be forever." What I didn't know at the time was that the situation wasn't just unfair. It was rigged. And when I finally discovered the truth, it hit me like a freight train. By the time Lisa was a senior in high school, it was like my parents were running some kind of campaign to get her crowned as the family's golden child of the century. Now, I'd always known they favored her, but this was something else entirely. They were obsessed with her college plans, treating it like a mission from God. They started taking her on college tours way ahead of time, turning them into family getaways. And every time they came back, Lisa would show off more university merch, sweatshirts, water bottles, planners, like she was already enrolled and ready to go. Meanwhile, I was just over here trying to survive another week without bouncing a payment. My budget was so tight I could barely keep up with anything. Tuition, books, my car constantly needing something, it was never ending. I couldn't afford to take a full load of classes, which meant my graduation date just kept getting pushed back. At the pace I was going, Lisa was on track to finish before I did. One evening, I was at the kitchen table, trying to cram for a quiz and already freaking out because I'd just realized I forgot to turn in an online assignment, again. I was on edge, totally stressed, and then Mom walked in. No greeting, no "how's it going," just straight to the point. "We're thinking of getting Lisa a car for college." I blinked at her, trying to figure out if I'd heard that right. "She's going to need something reliable," she added, like she was reading off a checklist. "You know how hard it is to get around without a car." I almost laughed. I mean, I couldn't even get help with a bus pass when I started school, and now they were gifting Lisa a whole car? Mom gave me that look, you know the one. The "don't be dramatic" look. "Sarah, you've always been the independent one. Lisa needs more support if she's going to succeed." I didn't say a word. I just stared at my notebook like it was going to absorb the rage building up inside me. But the car? That was just the grand finale. The truth is, they weren't just giving her a vehicle. They were giving her the full college starter pack, tuition paid in full, rent covered, monthly allowance included. These were the same people who told me I had to learn the value of money, and yet here they were, handing Lisa a blank check for the future I'd had to fight for. It was like watching someone live out the dream I wasn't allowed to have. And it didn't stop there. Mom dove headfirst into planning Lisa's dorm room like it was a home renovation show. She spent hours researching decor ideas, buying her matching bedding and storage bins. Dad suddenly decided he was a tech expert, helping her pick out the best laptop, comparing specs like he was building a spaceship. They even made a college budget, which, let's be real, looked more like a shopping list for a teen influencer. I'll never forget walking into the living room and seeing all three of them crowded around the coffee table, campus brochures everywhere, Lisa showing off some Pinterest board of her dream dorm, and Dad jotting notes like he was running a board meeting. "What's going on?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "We're helping Lisa decide between schools," Mom said without even looking up. "It's a big decision. We want her to be prepared." Prepared. Right. When Lisa started getting acceptance letters, it was like my parents had just won the freaking lottery. She got into her top choice, and they threw a whole dinner in her honor, her favorite meal, a cake with "Congrats Lisa" in pink icing, the whole 9 yards. Me? When I got into community college, I didn't even get a high five. During the dinner, Mom kept gushing about how proud she was, how Lisa had worked so hard to get to this point. At one point, she turned to me and said, "Sarah, you must be so proud of your sister. She's really going places." I wanted to scream. Worked hard? Lisa had no idea what hard even meant. She'd cruised through life on charm, talent, and nonstop parental favoritism. Meanwhile, I was racking up student loans, living off caffeine, and praying my car didn't break down. After that night, I started skipping family dinners. It was just easier to avoid them than to sit there and watch them build Lisa's throne higher and higher while I faded into the background. Then came the final straw. A couple weeks before Lisa's move-in day, I got home from work and saw a shiny used SUV parked in our driveway. At first, I figured maybe a friend was visiting or something. But then Lisa came bouncing outside, literally jumping up and down. "They got me a car," she squealed, like she'd just won the showcase showdown. I just stood there, staring at it like it might disappear if I looked long enough. Later that night, I overheard Mom and Dad talking in the kitchen. They were planning to give Lisa a monthly allowance, for groceries, gas, and a little extra just for fun. Meanwhile, I was living off ramen noodles and PB&Js because that's all I could afford after rent and textbooks. I thought about finally confronting them, saying everything I'd kept bottled up. But what was the point? I already knew what they'd say. Lisa needs more support. It's not favoritism. So, I bit my tongue. Again. Lisa, of course, had no clue. She'd wander into my room every now and then to show me photos of her dorm setup or talk about how excited she was for college. One time, she actually said, "Sarah, you're so lucky you got to figure out independence early. I don't know if I could do everything you do." Lucky. She thought I was lucky. I almost burst out laughing, but instead, I just said, "Yeah. It's been great," and turned back to my homework. The favoritism wasn't just annoying anymore, it felt like poison. It was inescapable. I started to wonder if my parents even saw me as their kid anymore or just some roommate they charged rent. I didn't talk to anyone about it, not really. My friends were kind, but they didn't get it. Bringing it up at home was like yelling into a void where no one was listening. One night, though, I did something different. I called Grandpa Charles. Growing up, I spent so many afternoons in his bakery. He taught me how to measure flour properly, crack eggs cleanly, and pipe frosting that looked like it came out of a magazine. For him, baking wasn't just about making treats, it was about putting love and effort into something and watching it bring people joy. He never judged me. Never pushed me to be something I wasn't. He just let me be. We hadn't talked in a while. Ever since he retired, he and Grandma had been living it up, traveling the world like they'd always dreamed. He built his bakery from the ground up, worked his tail off for decades, and when he finally hung up his apron, he passed the shop to one of his longtime employees and took off with Grandma to see the world. The only downside was, Grandpa's not exactly a tech wizard. He could barely work his phone, let alone stay connected through social media. So we didn't talk much, just the occasional postcard, maybe a phone call here and there. Most of the time, I heard about what they were up to from my parents. They'd only just gotten back from their travels when I finally picked up the phone and called him. I guess they'd decided to slow things down and spend more time at home. I hadn't reached out before that because honestly, I didn't want to dump my problems on him. He was retired, finally enjoying his life with grandma, and the last thing I wanted was to be the storm cloud in his sunny little chapter. But that night? I couldn't keep it all in anymore. As soon as he answered, his voice warm and familiar, like a hug I didn't know I needed, I felt my whole body relax just a little. "Hey, kiddo," he said. "What's going on?" And I didn't hold back. I laid it all out. How I was drowning in bills, how my parents were funneling every ounce of money and energy into Lisa's college dreams while making me scrape by on my own. I told him about the car, the allowance, how they treated her like royalty while I was pulling double shifts just to afford gas and groceries. Grandpa didn't interrupt once. He just let me vent. I could hear him on the other end, making small sounds every now and then, like he was slowly putting together a puzzle in his mind. Then, out of nowhere, he cut in. "Sarah," he said carefully, almost like he was testing the words. "Didn't your parents use the money I gave them for your college?" I froze. "What money?" I asked. There was a long pause. And when he spoke again, his tone had shifted. It wasn't angry, not yet, but there was something sharp under the surface, like he was trying to keep his cool. "When you were 16, your grandmother and I set aside $50,000 for your education," he said. "We gave it to your parents because they told us they'd use it for your tuition and school expenses." Are you telling me they never even mentioned it? It felt like the floor dropped out from under me. "They never said a word," I told him, my voice barely steady. "I've been paying for everything on my own. Every last bit." He let out a heavy sigh, one of those deep, disappointed breaths that seemed to carry the weight of years. "Sarah, that money was meant for you. We gave it to them so you wouldn't have to go through all of this. If I had known they were pulling this kind of stunt." He trailed off, but his silence said enough. The anger was there now, no question. It took me a second to fully grasp what he was saying. All this time, I was told my parents couldn't afford to help me, that they wanted me to learn how to be independent. But they'd had $50,000 that whole time, money meant to ease my burden, and they never even told me about it. They lied to me. "Sarah," Grandpa said, his voice low and steady. "They lied to you. That money was yours. Not theirs. Not Lisa's. Yours." I didn't even know what to say. I wanted to cry, but I didn't have the energy. Mostly, I just felt numb. All the years I'd spent scraping by, sacrificing sleep, pushing through every hardship, I could have had help. I should have had it. "What do you think they did with the money?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "I don't know," he said, and this time I heard it, pure, unfiltered anger. "But I'm going to find out." There was a pause. Then he added, "Sarah, you're not alone in this anymore. Let me handle it. You just focus on school, okay?" And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt something new, relief. Someone actually cared. Someone was finally on my side. "T. Charles, Grandpa," I said, doing my best not to let my voice crack. "Anytime, kiddo," he replied. "And Sarah, don't let this break you. You're stronger than they'll ever give you credit for." When we hung up, I just sat there for a while, staring at nothing. But the numbness didn't last. It started to shift, first into frustration, then into full-blown rage. How could they do this to me? How could they keep something so important from me and still look me in the eye while I was struggling to survive? It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was the betrayal. They saw me sacrificing everything, my time, my health, my grades, and chose to do nothing. Worse, they pretended like they were being fair. They lied to Grandpa. They stole from me. And then they had the nerve to act like I should be grateful for paying rent in the house I grew up in. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying every moment I'd asked for help, every time they brushed me off like I was just being dramatic. Mom telling me to budget better while she ordered Lisa a new phone. Them taking her on campus visits, shopping sprees, and lunch dates while I was eating instant noodles and praying my car wouldn't break down. All the late shifts, skipped meals, delayed graduation plans, it could have all been avoided. That money could have changed everything. The longer I sat with it, the more the anger turned into something else. Hope. Because Grandpa wasn't the kind of man to bluff. If he said he'd handle it, I knew he meant it. For the first time in years, I didn't feel totally alone in the chaos. It didn't erase the pain, but it gave me something to hold on to. A few days later, my phone lit up with his name. I answered immediately. "I talked to your parents," he said, skipping the small talk. "Sarah, you wouldn't believe the excuses they gave me." I braced myself. "What did they say?" "They told me they used the $50,000 your grandmother and I gave them for family expenses," he said, his voice tight. When I pushed them on what that actually meant, "Your mom admitted they were saving it for Lisa's college." My stomach dropped. $50,000. More than enough to pay off my tuition, my rent, and every single expense I'd been breaking myself to cover. They used it for Lisa. To give her a perfect, stress-free college life while I was out here barely staying afloat. They had no right, Grandpa said, practically growling. That money wasn't theirs to reallocate. It was for you. I made it very clear, they need to repay it. Every last cent. And if they won't pay it back, then they're out of the will. That was the moment I cracked. I looked at Grandpa, the words falling out of my mouth before I could even think. I can't stay there anymore. I just can't be in that house, not after everything. He didn't hesitate. "Then don't stay," he said calmly. "There's a bed here waiting for you. Pack up and come over tonight." I didn't need to be told twice. Moving out of my parents' house was the easiest call I've ever made. I didn't announce it or start some dramatic scene, I just grabbed my bags and started throwing my life into them the second I got off the phone. At some point, Lisa wandered past my door, looking in like I was a zoo exhibit. What's happening?" she asked, like she hadn't been living in the same house where all this had gone down. "I'm leaving," I said, not looking up. I shoved a stack of t-shirts into my suitcase. She stared. "Wait, you're what?" "Why?" "Go ask Mom and Dad," I said, yanking the zipper closed. I didn't owe her any answers, not anymore. Neither of my parents were home that night. Fitting. I left a short, cold note on the counter. "Moving in with Grandpa. Don't call me." And then I was gone. When I pulled into Grandpa's driveway, the porch light was already on, and he was standing there waiting like I was coming home from war. "Come in, kiddo," he said, hugging me tight. "This is where you should have been all along." The guest room was simple but warm, with a soft bed and a view of his backyard garden. It felt more like home in 5 minutes than my childhood bedroom ever had. That night, I actually slept. No tight chest, no pit in my stomach, no endless spiraling. Just sleep. But peace is fragile, especially when your parents are involved. By morning, the phone was already lighting up. Mom called first. I let it go to voicemail, of course, but I listened. "Sarah, how could you just leave like this? Do you even realize what this looks like? You're being dramatic. Just come home so we can have a proper conversation." "Yeah, hard pass." Then Dad tried. His voice was more controlled, but no less irritating. "Sarah, I get that you're upset. But this isn't the way to solve anything. We're family. Let's sit down and work through it." Funny how now they wanted to work through it. Where was that support when I was maxed out on bills and asking for help while Lisa got everything handed to her? By the end of the day, I'd ignored a full dozen missed calls and messages. It was like emotional whiplash. One minute they were sorry, the next they were accusing me of turning Grandpa against them. But one text from Mom really stuck out. "Sarah, you don't understand how difficult this has been for us. We were trying to do what was best for everyone. Why can't you see that?" I stared at it for a long time before typing out the truth. "No, Mom. You were doing what was best for Lisa. And you didn't care who else got hurt." Her reply came instantly. "That's not fair. We didn't mean to hurt you. You've always been strong, we thought you could handle it." There it was. The old story. I was strong, so it was okay to leave me struggling. I didn't even bother replying. The next day, they showed up at Grandpa's. I was sitting at the kitchen table helping him sort through bakery receipts when I caught sight of Mom's SUV rolling into the driveway. I groaned. "They're here." Grandpa didn't look the least bit surprised. "Let me talk to them," he said, getting up. I stayed put, but I could hear everything through the screen door. Mom launched into her routine the second the door opened. "Charles, please, we need to talk to Sarah. She's blowing this whole thing out of proportion." Grandpa didn't let her inside. "You mean the $50,000 you took from her without telling her?" "I think she's being remarkably calm." Mom tried to spin it. "It wasn't stealing. We used it for the family." "You knew it was Sarah's," Grandma snapped from behind him. "She was scraping by while you threw money at Lisa's every whim. You don't get to act like the victims now." I was holding back a grin. Mom looked flustered, still trying. "But Charles, we were just trying to." He cut her off hard. "If you're not here to apologize, then leave. Sarah's been through enough. I'm not going to sit back and let you manipulate her anymore." There was a long pause, then a car door slammed. They didn't even get past the porch. Once Grandpa demanded they pay back every cent they took, things unraveled fast. They'd been coasting, pretending everything was fine, but Grandpa made it clear, pay it back or kiss your inheritance goodbye. And they believed him. Because he wasn't bluffing. The ripple effect hit Lisa first. My parents had practically turned her dorm into a high-end hotel room. She had all the extras, designer bedding, a fancy coffee setup, gadgets, you name it. She never worried about money, work, or responsibility. That cushy ride ended fast. With $50,000 to repay, Mom and Dad had to cut corners. The care packages stopped. The spending money vanished. They even had to send back some of the expensive stuff in her room. Suddenly, Lisa wasn't living like royalty, she was just another broke college freshman. And the cherry on top? She had to get a job. I found out on Instagram. She posted a mirror selfie from some boutique with a cheesy caption, "First day. #workinggirl #new adventures." I laughed out loud. She was acting like it was some quirky lifestyle choice, but I knew better. I knew she hated every second of it. It didn't take long before Lisa started to unravel. One night my phone rang, and when I saw her name flash across the screen, my first instinct was to ignore it. But against my better judgment, I picked up. She was sobbing so hard I could barely piece together a sentence. "Sarah," she wailed, voice cracking like glass. "Everything's falling apart." I took a deep breath and tried to keep my tone steady. "What exactly is falling apart, Lisa?" "My whole life," she cried. "Mom and Dad said they can't send me money anymore. I have to budget, and work." She broke down again before she could finish the thought, completely overwhelmed by the very idea of living like a regular person. I rolled my eyes so hard I almost gave myself a headache. "Welcome to the rest of our lives, Lisa. You're finally getting a taste of what normal people deal with." She didn't like that one bit. Her sobs vanished in an instant, replaced with venom. "This is all your fault," she snapped. "If you hadn't gone crying to Grandpa, none of this would be happening." That actually made me laugh. "Oh, did I pop your little luxury bubble? I'm real sorry. But let's be honest, this isn't me punishing you. This is reality finally catching up. She tried to argue, probably had more finger-pointing ready, but I cut her off. Look, if you need someone to blame, start with mom and dad. They're the ones who stole from me so you could play princess at college. She hung up. And honestly? That saved us both time. The weeks after that were almost entertaining. Lisa started posting vague, self-pitying updates all over social media. Suddenly she was the tragic heroine, betrayed by the people she trusted. It was laughable, really. This girl had been spoiled her whole life, and now that she had to eat instant noodles and clock into a job a few days a week, she was acting like she'd been dropped into a war zone. One post stuck with me, just a sad little photo of her dorm desk with a foam cup of ramen and a caption that read, "College isn't as glamorous as it looks." I hovered over the comment button, itching to write something like, "You've been living this way for 2 weeks. Try years." But I didn't bother. What would be the point? Lisa wasn't capable of understanding anything beyond her own discomfort. Her friends didn't help either. The comments poured in, "Hang in there, you're so strong, proud of you for working hard." As if getting a part-time job and skipping Starbucks was some kind of personal triumph. Word through the family grapevine was that Lisa wasn't handling her normal life very well. She complained to anyone who'd listen about how unfair everything was. But people have their own problems, sympathy runs dry pretty fast when you've spent your life being pampered. Of course, mom and dad couldn't stand to see their golden child uncomfortable. They sent her a few care packages, smaller, less flashy than before, but enough to keep reminding her that she was still the favorite. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years they told me that struggling built character. That going without would make me tougher, more independent. But the second Lisa had to face the tiniest bit of adversity, they came rushing to soften the blow. Even with the extra help, Lisa was floundering. Her grades slipped. She struggled to keep her job. The cracks in her perfect little world were starting to show, and I didn't feel the slightest bit sorry. Meanwhile, life with Grandpa was the exact opposite. He didn't just give me a place to land, he gave me a way to rebuild. He helped me get my finances under control, pushed me to take more classes so I could finally finish my degree, and slowly got me involved in running his bakery. For the first time in a long time, I felt like someone actually believed in me. Like someone saw me, not as a burden, not as the one who could handle it, but as a person worth investing in. My parents kept reaching out, of course. At first it was nonstop. Mom left voicemail after voicemail, her tone swinging wildly between guilt-tripping and apologizing. "Sarah, please. We messed up, okay? But we love you. We're still your parents." Yeah. They loved me, just not enough to treat me like I mattered when it counted. Dad's messages were quieter, more calculated. "Sarah, I get that you're angry. But try to see things from our side. We did what we thought was right for the family. And right now, this family needs you. Please come home." I didn't answer any of them. What could I even say? They weren't sorry for the betrayal, they were sorry they got caught. Eventually, the calls tapered off. I think they started to realize I wasn't going to fall back in line just because they missed me. A little while before I graduated, Grandpa sat me down at the kitchen table and slid a folder across to me. "I've been thinking about what's next for the bakery," he said. Inside were spreadsheets, employee rosters, vendor lists, all the details of the business. He smiled that proud little smile of his, the one that creased the corners of his eyes. "You've been working hard, Sarah. You've got a good head for this, and more importantly, you care. I want you to take over, when you're ready." I just stared at him for a second, stunned. "Wait, are you serious?" "As serious as I've ever been," he said. "You've earned it." Those words hit harder than he probably realized. For so long, I felt like no one saw me. Like I could work myself into the ground and it wouldn't matter. But Grandpa had been paying attention all along. From that moment on, I was all in. I studied every part of the bakery business, hiring, scheduling, inventory, budgeting. Grandpa coached me through it all, letting me stumble when I needed to but never letting me fall. By the time graduation rolled around, I was ready. We threw a big party at the bakery, friends, co-workers, even a few of my old professors showed up. It was one of those nights where everything just felt right. As for my parents, we don't talk much anymore. They still try to patch things up here and there, like a few "we're proud of you" texts are going to make everything okay. But what they don't know is that Grandpa took them out of the will a long time ago. Maybe they're still holding out hope that they can worm their way back in. If so, that's their problem. I've got a business to run. A life to live. Let them watch from the sidelines. I'm moving forward. And I'm not looking back.